Hey guys, it's David. Welcome. I hope you're all doing great. As we get further and further into cold and flu season, it's important to keep in mind that there is no greater remedy than a big bowl of homemade chicken noodle soup, except for actual medication. But if you're like me for several years, you either don't have a good recipe for chicken noodle soup, or maybe you're just a little intimidated at the prospect of trying to make it from scratch. Well, fear not, because I have a recipe to share with you today that's not only super simple, it might just be the cure for the common cold. It isn't. But before we get started, as usual, go wash those hands, and then I will show you how to make chicken noodle soup from scratch. All right, now I didn't lie to you. I wouldn't lie to you, but I do sometimes gloss things over, so I don't scare you away from the very beginning. This is a very super simple recipe. A beginner can do it. It is no big deal, but it does take a little while to do. Okay, so you might want to let this be a Saturday or a Sunday project, and it does involve several steps. So not hard, but it will be a little bit of an undertaking, let's just say, time-wise and steps-wise. So we'll start with step one. This is kind of a two-in-one recipe because we are going to make the soup, but first I'm going to show you how to make your own chicken stock. That is going to be step one of making this soup. And this is where I will kind of go on a garden on your ass and judge you for buying the store-bought. The store-bought is fine, as she says, but when you learn to make your own chicken stock, it just makes it such an easy step to do your chicken and then reserve the stock for recipes later or for that night if you're doing something like this. So I highly encourage you to do this step. It will add to the overall amazing flavor of the end result. But let's start with our cast of characters for the chicken stock portion. I have one 3 to 5 pound chicken. This one was about 4.5 pounds. It doesn't matter really. This is just how chickeny you want your soup to be. And you could always save some aside if you get a larger chicken and you don't need to use all of it right now. That's of course easy to do. So what you're gonna do is either buy it already cut up in this grocery store, or you can cut it up yourself. So like I've cut this one up myself. And what you wanna do is remove the breast from the chicken first, keeping it intact with the bone, and then you want to split it down the middle to create what we call a split chicken breast, okay? Then you're going to put that to the side, and you're going to finish up cutting up the rest of the chicken. So we have that over here, and you also want to have one yellow onion that you're going to chop. Now this is going to be a rough chop. It doesn't have to be real fine because it's just going to be part of our stock. So this is fine to have it just like this. And then rounding out the ingredients, we have 3 bay leaves. You could use 2, just kind of depends on your taste, or none if you don't like the bay leaf taste. I've got 2 teaspoons of kosher salt, and I've got 1 tablespoon of oil. Now off camera going, I also have 3 cups of water boiling because you'll want to have that at that boiling temperature for that step. But this is how it starts, and we're going to move over to the cooktop, and I'm going to show you the next steps of making our stock. Okay, so the first step in making our stock is we're gonna brown our chicken breasts. I've got a 5-quart Dutch oven. No stranger to you guys if you've watched any of my other videos. This is one of my favorite go-to cooking pieces. I'm gonna take a pair of tongs, and I'm going to take the chicken breasts first and put those starting off skin side down into the pot. And you wanna back up a little bit because you're gonna have some oil coming off of it a little bit, you know? Okay, now I'm going to take my chicken breast and put it skin side down. Cover that so it doesn't splatter everywhere. And we're going to let this go for about 4 minutes per side, okay? So 4 minutes per side is what we're going to do this. Turn on a little vent, it's so hot. Take note of how clean the cooktop is because it's about to get really messy. That's how you know you're doing good cooking, if your cooktop is messed up by the time you're done. So I'm going to let these go 4 minutes per side, and we'll come right back. All right, now these have been going 4 minutes per side, so 8 minutes total. Should look like this. Now next we're gonna put, I'm gonna turn this down just a little bit because that cast iron, we've talked about this before, it really holds the heat in. So next I'm gonna put my onion, and I'm gonna let this go for about 3 minutes. You wanna just make sure that the onion is soft. Look at that multitasking right there. You wanna make sure that your onion gets soft and a little brown. So that should take about 3 minutes. Put that over there. And you want to just kind of stir this around. Now you can see a little bit better here how I've done that rough chop that I was talking about. You know, there's times where you want your onion to be real fine. This is not one of those. In fact, because we're going to strain this out later, a little bit of a chunky cut never hurt anybody. God bless the chunkies. All right. Now you'll see this is going pretty quick, and you're just gonna have to kind of eyeball it to make sure that it doesn't overcook or burn, depending on your heat and your stock pot. And we did turn it down just a little bit. So I had it at a medium heat, and I turned it down to about a medium low. Again, just because that's one of the great things about cast iron is that it holds that heat in. But that can also be something to keep in mind when you're cooking, because you don't want to flash burn something. You know, you throw it in, like I kind of just did with the chicken. Had it going longer than I thought it did. And it kind of snapped back at me. So what we want to do at this point is take our remaining chicken pieces, and we're going to put those in. Now that's going to be the 2 wings, the thighs, and the legs. Now I've just kept the thigh and the leg together, simply because this is, you know, just making our stock, and we're going to, you know, debone it anyway in a little bit. But what you want to do here, as awkward as this looks, is just keep constantly turning this until you don't see pink. Now keep in mind, we've got our chicken breasts over here. We hadn't forgotten them. We're going to be putting those back in just a minute. What we're going to do now is turn our heat to low, put on our lid, and then just walk away. We're going to let this go 20 minutes. I'm not going to film for 20 minutes. I'm going to cut out so that you don't see me just sitting here for 20 minutes. And then when we come back, we're going to take a look, see how everything's going, and probably it's going to be good enough to add our chicken breast back in, finish out our stock, and then we're going to go from there. Okay guys, it's been 20 minutes. Let's take a look and see how things are going. And that is exactly how it should look. Like crap. The end, we're done. Just kidding. This is exactly how it should look. Don't get nervous. It looks better by the end. You can't judge a haircut midway through and think that you're good to go. No, same with this. So what we are going to do, I've got our boiling water. We are going to turn our burner back up to high, and we are going to add our boiling water to this mixture. And we are going to take our chicken breasts, make these at home. I put them skin side down so that meat can really settle in there and get good and cooked. We're going to keep this uncovered so it's not going to trap a lot of the heat like it does when you cover it. And I'm just going to kind of settle these in amongst the other pieces. Oh, splash over there, kind of in the middle. Like I said, if it's not messy, you're not doing it right. So don't judge yourself. If it's messy, that means you're doing good. Okay, so this is going. You can start to see the boil coming back again. And lastly, I'm going to add my 2 teaspoons of kosher salt and my bay leaves. Sounds like bay leaves. Well, I wish I had some bay leaves right now. What's gonna happen is that when we've put these chicken breasts in, it's kind of cooled it down a little bit, but it won't take long. You can already see it starting to come back. So as soon as you see it bubbling like this again, turn this down to low, and we're gonna let it go for another 20 minutes. Okay guys, now these were Dolly Parton sized chicken breasts, so I let them go for about 25 minutes. I just wanna make sure they're good and cooked through. You wanna turn your heat off at this point. This is how it should look. You've got your cooked chicken pieces, you've got your broth left behind, and we are going to remove, at this point, the Dolly Parton chicken breasts. So here's 1 and 2. We're gonna set those aside to cool. You wanna make sure that they're cooled down all the way so that you'll be able to take off the skin and the bones, and you wanna basically separate the meat, cut that up or shred it, however you wanna do it, however you like it in your soup. And then next comes the tricky part that I hate doing on camera because I'm always afraid I'm gonna mess it up big time. Actually, I'm gonna move this over here. And that is dumping this into here. So basically, we need to strain out, and actually, you know what we can do? We can take out the other larger chicken pieces too. Let's do that. So along with your chicken breasts, we're gonna also take out our other pieces, like so, and let them cool off as well. Sometimes I leave them in for the flavor, but it'll be easier today with this if I just take them out. So I have an empty pot here. I have a strainer that I'm going to catch all of the larger pieces of onion with and the bay leaves and any of the chicken that's fallen off. And what you want to do, because this is kind of warm, is I'm just going to take this and pour it so that it goes through the strainer. And all I'm gonna have remaining is the stock left behind. That's gonna be our chicken stock. And if you're making chicken stock, this is the way that you would do it. And then this way, if you look here, then all that's left behind is just the good broth that you're gonna need, okay? And like I said, this is gonna be for our recipe today. If you were doing lots of broth, you could do multiple chickens, reserving that each time you do. I look like Mickey Mouse with the giant hands, so I'm gonna take these off. But you would do that for every one of them, hold it back. What we're gonna do is let this all cool off, okay? So as soon as the meat is cool enough to debone, we're gonna take that off. I probably won't do that part on camera because I'm sure most of you know how to do it, but if it's something you'd like to see or you wanna know more about, just let me know in the comments. Then I'm gonna also let this cool off to about room temperature and then stick it in the fridge for an hour. What you wanna do with your broth, and again, that's gonna be, let me move this other way so you can see better. So this that's left behind, your chicken broth, what you wanna do is let this cool off enough that that layer of fat rises to the top, because we're gonna skim that off and use it to cook our vegetables and a little bit for the soup, which makes those taste delicious. So I'm gonna do all of that, and that's where I'm gonna pick back up with you guys, and then we're gonna finish off with our soup. Okay guys, so it's been a few hours on this end, and the chicken was completely cooled, so I skinned it and deboned it, and now we have it over here to show you. So that's our chicken. I'm gonna go ahead and turn this up to medium heat to go ahead and get our stock pot preheating again, because we're gonna use the same pot that we used before. We cleaned it out and we're gonna start fresh, and I'll show you what we're gonna do in a minute to get our fat in place of oil for this step. But before I do, just to go over the cast of characters for this part, I've got a yellow onion that I've chopped, and this one I did chop a little finer because you will be actually eating the onion that's in this. It wasn't like a minute ago when it was part of the flavoring, right? So this you actually will be eating. So I chopped that up fine. A yellow onion, 1. 2 carrots that I have cut into 1/4-inch slices, and then 2 stalks of celery also in 1/4-inch slices. Peeled the carrots first, we do that. We don't like the rustic approach around here. Also, we have 1/2 teaspoon of thyme, and if you have a little time, I'll tell you about why I don't leave this ingredient out, and that's coming up. Finally, we have some egg noodles. I've got 2 cups of those, and that's gonna go in last. This is the stock that we made earlier, and you will see that the fat has started to solidify and collect around the top. So this is what we wanna spoon off that we're gonna use to cook our vegetables in. So once our skillet is fully preheated, you'll see that this will melt down and work just like oil does. Only I like doing it this way because you're not adding any fat. This is the fat that came from the chicken that we cooked. So this is not like you're adding even more grease or more oil to it. This is just the fat that the good Lord gave it. It's okay if you get a little bit of the juice in here. It's not gonna hurt anything. Enough to kind of coat the base. And we're just for now gonna put this, let me put this over here. Next, we are going to grab our spatula. I like using a rubber spatula because it's flexible, but it can take a lot of high heat. And that way you can, you know, as things start to collect along the edges of your pan or your pot or your skillet or whatever you're cooking with, you can push it down with that and it kind of bends with the direction of it. So I like that. But we're gonna take our 2 carrots and our 2 celeries and our onion, yellow 1. And we're gonna put that in here. Now we're gonna let this go for about 6 to 8 minutes. Okay, we're about halfway through, and you can see that a lot of the vegetables are starting to sweat, as my grandma used to say, but we're about halfway there, so almost done. So, what I was gonna say about thyme is, you guys, if you've seen any of my other videos, I always tell you make it your own, right? So when it comes to things like celery or onion or garlic or things like that, I've always told you in the past, if you don't really like those things, leave them out. It's okay. It's not going to make a huge difference. However, I will say when it comes to thyme, I just think that thyme is such an amazing herb, and it just adds a distinctive flavor. So unless you really, and I don't know anyone I've ever met who does not like thyme. I'm sure there are people out there. Let me know in the comments if you're one of them. But I would say always leave thyme in. It just creates such an amazing flavor that really does enhance all the flavors inside the dishes and the soups that you make with it. So anyway, just my little side note about thyme. All right, so we are going to add our chicken Cluck, cluck. And we're gonna add our thyme. And then we are going to add the rest of our chicken stock. Now, once we do this, we're gonna let this go for a good, probably I would say 10 to 15 minutes. And I'm gonna still leave this going at medium. So I'm gonna go to medium, but I'm gonna switch from my spatula over to my long handle spoon, my soup spoon and my sauce spoon if I'm making soup or making spaghetti sauce. So this will probably come up to a boil here in a minute. Now you can see already that there's quite a bit of chicken in here. We like our chicken noodle soup kind of heavy on the chicken. Oh, and then a word to my keto folks real quick. I hadn't forgotten you. Hey boo, you can make this soup as is and prepare your noodles separately rather than in the soup, which you're about to see me do in a moment. And then also just pick out the carrots because carrots are pretty high in carbohydrates. But other than that, I mean, you can eat this soup just as is, I think. Yeah. Just take into account the onions and the celery, which isn't much, but the carrots, yeah, they're a little high, and you definitely don't want the noodles, but it's delicious just without the noodles, honestly. So anyway, that's a little shout out to my low carb fam. So I'm gonna let this go again, for, like I said, for about another 10-15 minutes, and then I'll circle back for the final step with the egg noodles, and then we are almost done. Time to add our egg noodles. So just quick note, because if you're like me, I had never even heard of egg noodles, honestly. I didn't know what they were. All I'm used to at that point was spaghetti and fettuccine and ramen, and that's all I knew. So egg noodles are right there with all the other noodles. You just wanna find a bag that says egg noodles. It'll say like medium egg noodles, something like that. But the ones we're using today are about this size. I think these work great in the soup. Just give these a try, see what you think. And if you don't like those, you can always branch out and try a different kind. Or if you're like, you know, my keto brothers and sisters, just, you know, omit them all together. But you just want to pour 2 cups of egg noodles right into your soup, directly in, and just give this a little mix. Let it all become acquainted with one another. And this is going to go for about 5 to 7 minutes. Okay, that's time. So I'm going to go ahead and turn my heat off. You want to go ahead, if you have an electric burner like I do, you can actually take it off the burner for now, just let it cool down a little bit, and then maybe put it back on low. For you folks with gas, you can go ahead and let that go down to low right away. If you just want to let this keep going for a little bit, let it simmer. If you've used a cast iron pot like this, it'll retain a lot of that heat like we were talking about earlier anyway. So I will tell you, this actually is probably better than next day. I think that's the case with most soups, honestly. You know, it is delicious right off the bat, but if you let this go overnight, oh man, it's so good. So good. But we're gonna give it a try anyway right now, just to make sure it is as good as I hope it is. So I'm gonna do a little bit here. Okay, so I'm avoiding the noodles since I'm low carb, but I'm going to get some chicken in here and try to see how this looks here, see how the broth does. So let's see. It's really hot too. Right away, I can tell that I'm instantly cured of any cold or flu. That's how good it is. Very delicious. I like this the way it is. I'm actually gonna add a little bit of Sergeant Pepper. I don't think it needs salt, just personally. And look, you guys, I like salty stuff, don't get me wrong. I personally don't think it needs any, but you can add a little bit of kosher salt if you want, some table salt. Let people decide if they want to add it on their own, you know, however you want to handle that. But I think it tastes flavorful enough as it is. This will make, I would say, probably 4 to 6 servings in the north, 2 to 4 servings in the south. You know, we like our big servings, so just kind of prepare accordingly. But if you have found value in this video and you think this is something you want to try, please give it a like. I appreciate that. It helps the channel. It helps the YouTube algorithms find us so other people can see these as well. Please consider subscribing. That would be amazing. But regardless, you guys have an amazing week, and I will see you in the next video.